welcome everybody out to episode 4 of the Sideman Song Swap podcast. My guest today is Mr. Cale Richardson.
Hello.
And, so we're going to be doing one of the Sideman Song Swaps coming up at the Crossroads there in Fredericksburg. That's coming up March 17th. We're going to kick it off at 6:30. So definitely join us for that if you're in the area. Cale, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about how you got into music and your kind of journey that brought you to here and all the kind of fun things in between there.
You know, you probably kind of go back. I'm from Lubbock, and I went to South Plains College out there. So I got hooked up with some cool folks way back, and I guess specifically Scott Ferris, who has a studio there in Lubbock. He's the one who's producing our new record, and he's done all the Flatland Cavalry stuff.
Nice.
So he's producing this record, and so I was out there going to school, just trying to play cover gigs or whatever, and you know, Cody Banks, you know Cody, drummer Cody Banks?
Amazing drummer.
Awesome, yeah, world class. His dad, Kerry Banks, who was in the Maines Brothers, just also world class.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, that's his dad. There's like a Maines Brothers album where like Kerry's like laying on top of a convertible Cadillac, and it's like Amarillo Highway or something like that.
I'm gonna have to go back and find that.
It wasn't just Wild Man Cody Banks, I think. It was Wild Man Kerry Banks.
Man, I feel like I've known Cody for a good amount of time. I always look up to him and his playing, but I don't think I ever knew that.
Yeah, he's what do they call it when you've got some lineage there, you know?
Oh yeah, gets in the blood.
And my dad always played. My brother played. My mom played a little bit. She was more like, you know, music reading, violin kind of thing. But
a musical house nonetheless.
Yeah, it was always around. So I'm going up South Plains. I meet these people, and Cody is playing drums for Honey Brown at the time. So this would be about 2005. And, you know, he called his dad out there. He's like, hey, is there anybody worth looking at? We need a guitar player. Because Alex Whedon at the time had just gotten the Miranda Lambert gig.
Man, all these dots are coming together. So I just talked to Alex about this deal.
Oh yeah,
a little while back, and we'll be having him on one of these before too long.
Dude, he's hysterical. like pulls up, opens the back of his vet, wants to sell you his used stage clothing. Hysterical.
Oh man, I've talked to him on the phone, and I've heard a lot about him, but I've never actually hung out with him. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, dude, he's a hoot, man. And what was I gonna say? Well, anyway. Okay, so yeah, I'm in Honey Brown at this point, and everybody's, you know, other than Cody, is 15 years older than me, and I mean, I was the noob, like as green as they come. And they were really, really awesome to me. Fred and those guys really like took me under their wing and let me, you know, figure the shit out. Not give me too much shit, but just the right amount of shit.
Yeah, I feel like that's the best way to learn. Get thrown in the fire, and you're kind of forced to just pick it up or drop out, one of the two. But you're obviously here this far later. Must have learned a lot at the time from them.
Were you playing with Mark around then?
So I started playing. That was my intro into the kind of Texas country realm as well, was with Mark, and that was 2000, I think 7 or 8.
Yeah, because I remember running into you guys a lot around that time. I can't remember. Is Mark your cousin?
So I'm not related at all, but one of my best friends is Ryan Coggin.
Ryan Coggin,
and he was also in the band. Him and Mark are cousins. And Mark had a brother in the band at the time too. So it was definitely kind of a family situation.
I love that guy. Ryan is so cool.
Indeed.
You know, he's the guy who can stage manage, tour manage, turn around and play all the lines on bass, guitar tech. He can do it all.
Oh yeah.
You know?
And he's done most of it in some form or fashion at this point.
I was kind of surprised to see him move to the kind of the more of the back, you know, behind stage stuff, because he's such a great performer and, you know, rock and roll bass player. Kind of surprised me.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say see him move to the rock world, which didn't surprise me at all because he came from it. I mean, a lot of us did.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, him that definitely surprised me too. He definitely had some magic on stage and was a great musician. So it was kind of weird to see him go that route, but I think he's so methodical and organized mentally, where I think most musicians aren't.
Yeah, that is not me.
I think he definitely found a special talent a lot of people don't have in that realm, and seems to be obviously pretty good at it.
Like, I need a master tour for my entire life.
Right.
Just the team's like, okay, here's what's on the schedule today. First off, the shower. Second off, the shave.
Oh man, yeah. Structure is definitely something that I feel like a lot of musicians are missing, and I don't know. It's definitely something that he found that he's talented at and is great. And now that he's been doing even bigger stuff, kind of last while has been with Nothing More Rock Band, and they've been doing international stuff. So he's gotten even more under his tour management belt, as far as that's a whole other realm when you're international and you got a language barrier, and
Right.
I can't imagine that stuff.
Yeah, because I think I was out with Eli Young, and we were somewhere in like Wisconsin playing a festival up there, and all of a sudden I see Ryan calling. I'm like, "What? Oh, I'm stage managing the festival." You know, I'm like, well, yeah, good to see you somewhere other than Texas. That was awesome.
Nice.
And that was when I was like, okay, this guy really, he knows how, the whole business seems to work.
Yeah.
So some people have that omniscient kind of thing. They can kind of say, okay, here's all the little pieces. And then guys like me, it's like, well, I'll play guitar.
Right.
I'll be that cog.
So Honey Brown, that was what, 2000? You said
2005. I was finishing up out South Plains and just kind of commuting back and forth and looking for a place to live down here. Like 21 years old. Do you remember Quentin Clendenin, the drummer?
I don't think I do.
I was living with him when we first moved down here. He was playing with Ryan Turner, and
I did play with Ryan Turner a short bit.
I think most of us did. But yeah, I was doing that for a while, and then for a couple years I was playing with Ryan James.
That's right. And that was with Cody too, right?
Yeah, there for a minute it was Cody and Matt Slagle, and that was the 4-piece band, and it was pretty fun.
I bet that's a pretty all-star lineup.
Well, it's formative to get to play with those guys, and like I promise, I was the weakest guy in the room.
Man, I definitely have felt that way many times from the bands I've been lucky enough to play with. Looking back, it's like, oh wow, yeah, how did I get through that and not completely embarrass myself? Which I probably did a few times, but
well, you were talking about earlier seeing Pat Green back in the day, and it's like that's well, it still does seem like stardom. It's like, wow, that's a crazy gig, and now you're playing with him, and it's like, all right, but I think it means you're where you're supposed to be.
Yeah,
you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
It's funny how it all comes full circle. Man, I remember watching those guys. I mean, hell, me and my wife used to go out to Lake Travis during the summers, because we grew up here in South Austin, and back then going to the lake, it was either, I wasn't even into like Texas country at the time, wasn't even aware of it really, but when we went out there, it was always Pat Green, Ragweed, and Radney Foster. And
I love Radney.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he's good.
One of my favorite writers now. Back in the day, I didn't really pay any attention. That's just what she liked to listen to when I did that stuff. I was way into rock and screamo at the time. So it's funny how it all comes full circle years later.
We were playing a theater with EYB and up in like Virginia or something, and we weren't really. It'd been just random openers for weeks, and then somebody said, Radney Foster's opening the show tonight, acoustic. I'm like, I went out and stood like front row, like fangirled him the whole time, before we even went out and played.
I would have done that too, man. It's funny how, like I say, she brought me into the whole Texas country realm, and before I started playing in it, and it took a little bit to kind of get me into it. But Radney definitely has become one of my favorite writers, and at some point, I remember when I started playing with Pat, his band, they had done something where they played with him, and part of the deal was they were backing up Radney before the Pat set. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I would love for that to happen again. Who knows if it ever will, but I feel like in my days in this realm, like I've come across everybody for the most part, but somehow Radney has been somebody I've never worked with, and I've had guys that played for him play with me in different bands and stuff, but never come across him themselves.
Charlie Richards plays with him sometimes.
Oh yeah.
I think for a while he had like a Nashville band and a Texas band,
which totally makes sense.
Yeah, because if you're gonna just fly down and pick up a band, it's like
Right.
forget a bus. You
Just
know,
cut your expenses way down if you don't have to do it back and forth all the time. Yeah, Charlie Richards played with Brian Keane for a little while. Was it?
Yeah.
And
I didn't think
super
you played
tasty
with
player.
Brian Keane.
Yeah, I did that for like a year and a half.
Uh-huh.
And I was just talking to somebody the other day about how underrated he is. Brian never quite got the commercial level that he deserved.
Mm-hmm.
He's such an amazing songwriter, and
I'm totally blanking. What's the one of his? What are a couple of his that?
I felt bad. So we play at shows, and a lot of times people be like, "Man, I love how you decided to cover that be it Hayes Carl song."
It's like I wrote it.
William Clark Green song. And it's like, or that Josh Abbott song. Like, no, I wrote that. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. Tractors ain't sexy. Yeah.
Right. So there are all these tunes that he's written, and people they never, his name didn't get out like it should have. We would play, all the kind of beat your head against the wall type bar gigs in Texas, and Brian's talent was
little
so
town of
above
Bethlehem.
Indeed. And that was one that always got to me. It's like he should have gotten so much more than he did out of that, but I know he's still making music kind of on his own terms now, here and there, but
well, it's the exact same thing with Ryan James.
Yeah.
Just a brilliant songwriter. Still just writes these great songs. Like, it's interesting to see some of the songs he writes now, because he just writes for himself at this point. Whereas, if you're playing in a band or you're writing records, you're sometimes writing with an agenda. Right. Maybe you're writing songs for other people, and you're like, okay, well, I got to make it this Nashville thing because that's what I'm selling it to. You know, whatever the case. So now when he writes for himself, he kind of writes like Don Williams stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe in fairy tales, that kind of stuff. He's like, I don't know. It's just kind of what comes out.
Man, I feel like that's when the best art comes out most of the time. When there's no agenda or no force, or there's not something you're trying to accomplish with it.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, we were doing the same thing with him, where you play the bar gigs that just, you make just enough to make gas money, and like, okay, who's sleeping on the floor tonight,
right?
And who gets the bed, and I think after a few years of that, not seeing it take off the way it probably should have, just it's not sustainable at a point.
No, it'll drive you. I mean, not only broke but insane. I feel like, especially if most of these guys have wives and kids and stuff, and it's hard to balance those two lives.
Oh, well, that was huge too with him. They started having kids, and it was like, and now he's a nurse practitioner and kicking ass in Houston, and still plays drums, and awesome dude.
Indeed.
But I'd love to see him get back out and play some shows. I'd just sign right up to go play for him.
Yeah. Same thing if Brian called me tomorrow and was like, hey man, I want to play a show tomorrow. Can you do it? Yes, sir. I'll be right there.
Right.
Man. Actually, I'm going to try and get him on one of these when his schedule lightens up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because he also did the Sideman thing for a while too.
Mm-hmm.
Brian played keys for the Randy Rogers band for a year or two. And
really?
That would be a pretty crazy gig.
Small world, man.
Saw some fun stories.
Those guys are great.
Indeed. So, Ryan James, where'd you go from there?
So after a couple years playing with Ryan and having a great time, he just kind of hung it up for the most part. At some point, he was doing like a 3-piece where he was actually singing and playing drums. And like, I know you play drums and I know you sing, and I don't have to tell you. And he got pretty damn good at it, because it's just like, there's only a handful of dudes that can do that.
That's a totally different ballgame.
But that was a product of having to downsize to just.
Right.
So I actually went back with Honey Brown there, and I think I got the 09 maybe, and Fred had been working with some really good dudes, and they just put out a new record, and it was a fun couple of years being back with Fred, and it was cool because you know, the first time around, I was definitely the kid.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. And when I came back, it was kind of cool because I think they all kind of looked at me like, okay, he went off and played with some other bands and survived. You know, he can hang now maybe.
Yeah.
He won't order a virgin pina colada when we go out to Chili's.
Oh man. So did you stay in touch with Fred?
Absolutely.
Nice.
Fred is so awesome. He's actually playing a few Honey Brown shows here and there.
Nice.
And I played one with him back in November. And you know Mike Henry?
Yeah.
He's kind of been the de facto drummer for that band for the last several years.
Nice. I've met him once or twice. I don't know that we've had a conversation, but I've definitely run into him here and there.
Dude, he's a sweetheart of a dude, man. He's one of those really musical drummers. I don't know if he can read, you know, a note of music or anything, but like he can sing like a bird. I swear the guy's got perfect pitch. And you ask him what he does. Well, I'm a drummer. Okay, but I really think because of that mentality, he thinks about drumming like a musician, like, you know, how it should move and fluctuate with, you know, and not just be this static rhythmic thing.
Right.
So,
man, I will tell you.
I don't want to name any names. He's talking about Fred. If there's ever a drummer like that, just like, ooh, maybe this guy needs to go back to the woodshed, you know, Fred would be like, "You see that drum owner up there?" Fred was brutal, man.
Man, I ran into Fred. I don't know him either very well, but he actually booked Pat for a festival down in Galveston.
Yeah, he does the Mardi Gras.
So yeah,
he's been the talent buyer for that for several years. It really sucks because with all this COVID stuff, they just completely lost all their budget to do it. And before that, they were having people like Pat or Neon Trees or some pretty big acts come down there. Yeah, so I played with Fred for a couple of years, and then I got an opportunity to audition for a guy named Hudson Moore.
Oh yeah.
And that was kind of through Brendan Anthony, because at that time he was kind of consulting for Hudson. He kind of working in a capacity like, okay, we're gonna get you a band together, we're gonna rehearse up a show, you know, because Hudson was a great songwriter even, you know, when he's like 17. He's writing really good shit. But he'd never really played out much. And so I think that was Brendan's role there. It's like, okay, we're gonna call Nate Kuhn, we're gonna get Kiko Hanna on bass, plays with Stoney now. And they had Jacob Peterson on guitar. And he got called up to the big leagues to go play with Steve Miller. And that's who he's been playing with. Do you know Jacob?
I don't think I've met him.
He's a card. I'll tell you about him later. But so yeah, he got that gig, and so they're looking for a replacement. And you know, just through the powers that be, and Brendan was like, "Hey, you want to come try this?" And so it was really cool to work with that band. And that's actually kind of the band that ended up being the band on the record we're doing right now. Because we really click that rhythm section. When you get those two guys together, and I know you get that. There's probably bass players that just like Slagle. Slagle makes you play better. He makes everybody play better.
He does. He is the easiest bass player to play with ever for a drummer.
Plug your ears, Slagle. I'm not talking. You're not watching this. He's not watching this. He's too cool to watch podcasts.
So he has a special talent about him that every frontman needs, but none of them have. Is where I thought he was trying to help me through the gig at first, but if you come up to a stop, he kind of does this, and I thought he was kind of helping me like remember where parts were because I just started the gig, and I realized later that's just what he does.
Yeah,
he's just like, if you just watch him, you know exactly what to do without ever knowing the song if you hadn't heard it. So I feel like drummers, if you step into sub a gig that Slable's on, you don't got to worry about too much. If you parts aren't perfect or you didn't necessarily memorize every piece, like just kind of look over that direction, you'll know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, well, I met him way back in the day, and he really got me kind of hooked up with some of the Austin scene. Because at that point, all I'd experienced was the Texas Country Guys and that whole thing. And he was playing with Don L. Robinson, MC Overlord.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and we would go down and see Boombox play at Lucky Lounge.
No shit.
Don't look for it; it's not there, kids. It's like Spinal Tap.
Oh man. Dude, so.
But I got to play a couple of his hip hop gigs.
Nice.
And it was the coolest thing. It's like, can you play a ninth chord? Yeah. Can you play a ninth chord all night long? You know, it's more about just shut the hell up and let the rhythm section do the thing.
Man, that was a funny time that I remember pretty specifically because before I got into the Texas country realm, I was playing in rock bands, and one of them got picked up by VMG, which was the Vallejo guys had started a small label.
Omar and the boys.
Oh yeah, and so we worked with them, and Omar did the record, and we would play with a lot of their artists, and they did a lot of stuff with Overlord back in those days. I remember I remember seeing and hearing a lot about keeping up with them back in those days, and it's funny that we bring up Slagle because I didn't really know him at that time, but we did a lot of the same stuff. We're in a lot of the same things, so it's a pretty small world, even if you think.
Yeah, so he was kind of my entry into knowing anybody in the Austin scene at all. You know, anybody that's worked with the Vallejos or maybe with Bob Schneider or the Saxon crowd down there. You know, I didn't know any of those people before I met Slagle.
Yeah,
he's from Austin. He's like really from Austin.
Right. That's pretty rare these days. People will freak out when they hear that too.
But yeah, that was really cool to get to play with Overlord, and just broke my heart when he passed here a few years back.
Yeah.
Died way too soon.
Yeah. Indeed. Man, that was I remember that pretty well too because Slagle, we had Pat dates and he flew home for his whole deal because they were really close and yeah.
Oh yeah, he married Matt and Kelly, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really, really tight.
Yeah.
They used to have 3-day benders at the house. That was way before that was way before Cali.
Oh man.
But yeah, Overlord, that dude was a force of nature. Like, just to be on stage with him, to soak up just a little bit of that, it was like, this is cool, you know?
Indeed.
Or, his drummer, Les Fisher? I say his drummer. They played together a whole lot.
Yeah, I knew the name, but I don't think I ever knew him.
I think, and I may be wrong about this, but he may have played for like Janet Jackson back in the day. Just one of those like R&B hip hop drummers that just probably came from the church world.
Right.
Just crazy chops, and he would never ever drop the backbeat for us. Like, you know the guys who go for the crazy fills and the feel goes completely away.
Right.
Like that backbeat net, it just doesn't fluctuate with that guy. He's a force of nature too.
Nice. Did you play Backroom in those days?
Backroom.
I think at that point it was over on Riverside.
Oh, is that Come and Take It Live now?
If not, it's like it's all in the same realm, but
like where they put that Emos. I don't know if that Emos is still there.
I think Emos is still there. Maybe it's been a while.
It's so weird. That's not Emos to me.
Right.
It's not nearly
Red River and 6th Street was the old. I spent a lot of time there. Like I said, I was in a lot of the screamo stuff.
Yeah, I bet you're down at the Mohawk and.
Oh man, I wasn't even old enough to be in those bars that time, but definitely spent a lot of time down there.
Yeah, I'd go see bands like the Feds. You know, it's totally not really what I play, but I love that stuff. And then go see them play in Denton. I remember seeing them down in Red River a bunch.
Yeah, I definitely don't like being that guy who jumps out like, Austin's not what it used to be. Austin is still extremely cool, just in very different ways.
Right.
But there's a lot of memories and places down there. If you played in Austin those years, like just these little strongholds that are for the most part gone now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the one on 6th Street where it's like, come rain or shine, 8 days a week, they're going to have a blues band in there playing as loud as they can go with the windows open. It does, I think Eric Tesmer logged like 14 days in a row or something.
I believe it.
Of course, not many of them were as good as him. You know, when you see the real deal that can do that strat thing so well.
Definitely. So you kind of made your way around the Austin scene, met some people. What happened next for you?
So playing with Hudson for a couple years, great experience. Got to work with tons of great people. Brought one of my best friends into the band. I didn't, but David Fralin came in and played keys, and we go way back to like junior high. Like we went through junior high, high school, SPC together.
And that was in Lubbock?
Yeah.
Damn. I don't think I realized that.
806, man. It's the 806. But he got in the band, and you know, he started as a singer, then he was going to be a guitar player, and then he kind of got out of music for a while, and then he came back around playing with Bart Crow, and I guess that's probably Slagle was playing with Bart Crow then. That's when we all got to be friends. But David, despite what I would have thought he would have turned out to be like a lead singer or something, like Axl Rose style. That's what he did back in high school, you know. And now he's the B3 guy.
So I saw that in reverse order. So when I met him, he was playing keys, I think with Bart probably at the time. And I've seen him play with a bunch of people in that realm, but I didn't know that, dude, he's an incredible frontman.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
When it took until Josh doing the Josh Abbott shows, he would do, was that AC/DC?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, until I saw that, I remember being like, I had no idea he had that in him.
We were playing in cover bands back in high school, doing that kind of stuff. And he was the lead singer, like, with Mystique. No, wait. He's the lead. I'm the lead singer, and you're the guitar player with Mystique. You know, we wanted to be Led Zeppelin there for a couple of years.
Wow.
But it's really cool to see how he developed into this awesome keys player. We joke around like the keys player for Tom Petty, Benoit Tench. We call him Beaumont Tench. But he does that thing where it's not like a crazy jazz kind of B3 guy. He finds all those little textures and just glues stuff together. You know, guys like Bucka Allen are really good at that stuff too, you know.
Indeed.
So yeah, okay. I went off on a tangent about David. So yeah, we're all playing together, and at that time Hudson wasn't playing a whole lot, and I don't think he had intentions to tour very hard at that point. So I was kind of wanting to get on the road, and here's where Bart comes into the picture. I've been friends with Bart all these years. Love the hell out of that dude, and we've played together here and there, but we've never been able to like get it together where I could actually, you know, play with him full time. And so I signed on to do that, and I'm like, cool, let's go hit the bars, let's hit the road, you know. And literally on my first gig with him, we're going out to like Marfa, Aspen. You ever been out to Railroad
Blues?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's where we're driving, and James Young from Eli Young calls me on that drive. I'm in the backseat of the van, like, first of all, James has not called my phone ever. He's like, hey man, what you up to? Sounded about half drunk. And I'm going, oh my gosh, this is like, Bart's gonna kill me, but how can I not, you know, take this opportunity? And so since then I've been Judas.
Yeah.
Like he'll just send me little text messages like, man, you know that little spot on my back's kind of prickling where you stabbed me all those years ago. It made me think of you. I wanted to come check on you.
Oh man,
that's how funny Bart is. So yeah, that's how the EYB thing kind of came about.
I was gonna say I didn't realize that was so quick.
Yeah, and I had to say that because if I didn't, David and Bart would never let me not. It's like let's remind everybody, you know, that you abandoned your buddy Bart.
Oh man.
But Bart's since sort of forgiven me. And so yeah, they were at that point hitting it really hard. That was right when Crazy Girl hit. And
what year was that?
2012.
Yeah.
So yeah, they kind of brought me on. It was like trial by fire. It's like we're on the road playing 5-6 shows a week. They were doing the Rascal Flatts tour, But then when all the other Nashville acts would go home for a couple days and rest, we tack on a Tulsa show and then a Flight 8. And they were hitting it that kind of hard then.
Yeah.
So they said, come up to Dallas, we'll do a rehearsal. And it didn't even dawn on me. It was like moving heaven and earth just to get a rehearsal in, because they were so slammed at the time. And everybody's home for a day and they just want to go home and do laundry and see their wives,
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I go up there and we do a little run through and all right, cool. We're flying tomorrow to get back on the Flats tour. You ready to play an arena?
Man,
and
it's gonna be a crazy whirlwind.
So yeah, I'm up there and everybody's like, okay, I'm gonna run to the house and do some laundry, and oh, by the way, we have an acoustic show tonight. I'm like, what? In Dallas? Like, okay, yeah, we're doing this thing. We're gonna go play for Wounded Warriors, and play like 3 songs on acoustic. Why don't you just go ahead and come play with us? I'm like, okay. So by the way, George W. Bush is gonna be there. This was all on my first day. It's like a rehearsal, an acoustic show for George W. Bush, and then the next day we went and played an arena with Rascal Flatts. I'm like, okay, I better strap in here.
That's crazy.
But yeah, we're sitting there playing, and James Young, guitar player, his parents were there because they lived in that area, and his mom's over there, and she's talking to George W. and we're all just kind of looking like, is he flirting a little bit? Maybe.
Man, my dad's played music forever, and he's played a few presidential things for him, and he always had interesting stories about him being quite the character. So I can only imagine that would have been the case.
I'm just going, wow, trial by fire here.
It's funny you mentioned getting a call from James. Same thing when the Pat thing came around. My phone rang and I looked at it, and it said Justin Pollard, and I was like, I didn't know I had his number. I guess I'd gotten somewhere along the way, but he doesn't call me. That's weird. What is this about? And take that call, and it's out of nowhere, just one day I just got a phone call like, oh, really?
Well, and also, what a way to get it. It's like, here's the guy who did the gig and killed it for 20 years.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I want to hand this off to you. That's saying something,
Definitely. It was a very interesting situation. I tell stories about it all the time, but
because Pollard, we all know he's a beast.
He's ridiculous, and I mean, he has 20 years worth of proof of that.
I think he's got a drum set for every year.
Pretty much.
From what Nate Kuhn has told me.
At least. That was in transition from that gig. I spent some time with him up in DFW, and his collection, which I'm sure is twice as big as it was at that time, he showed me that. He had a friend that had the biggest drum collection I've ever seen. He had, I don't even know what it was, but behind his house, he just had these like warehouses, it felt like. And there's just hallways of 2 shelves, each kick and the toms stacked up to here. Just like hallways of things. I was like, well,
jeez.
What happens in your life where that's what you end up doing? I mean, it's cool as shit. I can't imagine having that, but I'm just like, what? How do you even? It's crazy.
Dude, it's Alex Whedon. He must own 40 guitars.
See, like his guitar?
Yeah, he's gonna be pissed. I'm like telling his secrets, but the dude he's just been collecting them his whole life, because he's been playing since he was a kid, and I'm sure it didn't hurt playing for Miranda. Like they probably threw him a couple of free Les Pauls over the years.
Yeah,
but I couldn't fathom having an instrument collection that big, because I always want to keep them all like ready to play.
Right.
I probably own about 9 guitars, and it's hard enough keeping them all strung up.
Right.
I can't imagine 40 drum kits. It's like, and heads on both of them.
Yeah, I'm pretty particular about my stuff too, and I can't imagine. I guess you change mentalities once you get that many, but.
Oh, Alex, he leaves the string, the bag the strings came in, and dates them, so he remembers the last time they changed. He changed the strings.
That makes sense.
I didn't know what those Camco drums were before Nate was telling me about them.
Yeah.
I was like, what? DW was a thing before it was EW? And that's what the session we just did here, he brought those Camcos. I think he bought them on Pollard.
Nice.
Like 60s.
That was one thing about Pollard that also blew me away, is his knowledge of just drums in general. You know, a lot of people can play amazing or know this and that, but he knew all that stuff. I don't know much about Camco until seeing those collections with him. And
One
they'd be like,
tuning.
oh, dude, check out this Ludwig kit over here. And he'd be like, that looks like it's probably early 70s. Is it granitone inside or is it the clear? And I'm like, what? Learn all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like in the short, I don't keep real close touch with him anymore, but in that short kind of transition period, we talked quite a bit, and he had produced a few songs that we did in studio with Pat, which was another weird thing because he produced, played drums on Pat's stuff for so long that, like, hey, we're going to the studio next week. It's these 2 days. I'm like, great. Do I need to show up those? They're like, yeah, you play drums for the band now. And I was like, I should assume Pollard would be doing that stuff. And like, nope, you're up. It's your turn.
And it kind of makes me wonder what that was like for Pollard too.
Right.
Like, okay, I'm going to sit in the producing chair and just sit there.
Yeah. And so he did. He showed up and produced everything. It was super fun, easy, smooth session. And yeah.
Did y'all just record over at Dwight Baker's place?
Yeah, so we just did a record in December, which was a ton of fun.
Dwight's the best, man.
Dude, and Dwight is a drummer as well, so...
Oh, I didn't know he played drums.
Oh yeah, that was his first instrument.
Okay.
So, it was so crazy because we'd go in there and of course he has amazing drum stuff in there. But we'd start listening through just a work tape of a song we're about to record. Thinking like, all right, vibe, groove, what are we thinking here? And he's like, you know what? Grab that snare. There's going to be a quarter length weight over here. Go ahead and throw that on it. Take the 2 lugs closest to you, drop them a quarter turn each. I'm like, what? And so I do all this stuff. We get in there, I'm like, whoa! That's exactly what this song needs. That how do you know that?
Right.
He's just done it so long, both recording and playing drums, that like it was that easy for him.
When it's like guitar players like Dave Grissom or something. You'll see him get up at a jam or something and plug into some random amp, and it doesn't sound like Dave Grissom through a Marshall, because the guy just he's got the touch.
Yeah.
It's like the gear doesn't matter at that point.
It's crazy. So yeah, the funny thing about that, and I mean everybody's dealing with this right now, but we finished that record. It's supposed to come out. It was going to come out spring, but they're like, we don't want to release it until y'all can tour and support it. So
Makes sense.
who knows when that will be? I feel like everyone's kind of in that same boat, but we'll see how that happens. I actually got 2 songs on that record. I've never had cuts of my own,
Congratulations.
so thank you. Super excited about that. So I'm even more excited for this record to come out whenever it does, but that was super special. Tell us a little bit about your project you're working on now.
Yeah, so
By the way, I'll just say real quick, if y'all don't know, all this Sideman stuff that Cale's been doing through the years, he also writes and sings his own stuff, which is kind of what we're here to talk about. And is it all still under Cale and the 45s?
yeah, so back in March, right before all this hit, I got the 7-year itch, I guess. I'm ready to do something different, and decided I'd move on from EYB. It's nothing but an amazing experience, and opportunity of a lifetime to get to play with those guys. But I'm ready to do something different, and so we've been in the studio, we've been writing tunes, and like I said, we're working with Scott Ferris, who does Flatlands Records, or did. I think they're working with some people in Nashville now, but we've been working out here at my buddy Blake's place, and it's
You're
great.
providing the beautiful scenery today.
And we're tracking it. He's got a 2-inch tape machine. We're tracking to tape. Like I said, some of the guys I played with, Hudson, Nate, and Kiko. David has played on all the 45 stuff. He's, to use Jesse's joke, he's one of the 45 members. Sorry, Jesse Duke. Should put that in there. Yeah, you need to have Jesse Duke just over there as commentary. He'd be the Ed McMahon. But yeah, so that's what we're doing now. We're gonna put out a full length, and I'm hoping just as soon as we got a couple of tunes that are mixed and mastered, we'll probably release some singles, hopefully this spring, and be playing shows.
Nice. So make sure y'all are on the lookout for that. And where can they find everything?
You can go to CaleandThe45s.com. We also have the Cale and the 45s Facebook page, Instagram, the usual stuff. We're on Spotify. So the first EP is on Spotify if you want to check it out, which we also recorded here.
Yes.
But But yeah, look for new music. You know, this hopefully before summer.
Yeah. I think we're all ready and waiting for things to get back to where, oh, we can release music and play again like we used to. It's coming back slowly. Man, it has been so much fun talking. I feel like we've had a nice trip down memory lane. So for some more stories and some of this original music, make sure y'all join us. Once again, this is coming up March 17th. It's a Wednesday, 6:30 at the Crossroads in Fredericksburg, which is a super cool spot to hear music. That's coming up, so make sure you join us there. And thanks for joining me here.
Dude, thank you. My pleasure.
Oh yeah. We'll see you guys there.